conjure. And let me just get a shout out real quick to Chris, a subscriber who I saw during my travels. I'm still not quite back in my home space, as you can see. I'm back in LA at an undisclosed location. But I happened to run into a subscriber. So, hey, if you see me out in the world, say hello. I was in Chicago at a house music festival. Remember, the last video I uploaded was about house music. And like I said, then I really am a house head, love house music. And so I was at this festival. And lo and behold, here comes Chris. Hey, are you Dr. Darnise? So it was quite funny. And I just wanted to give him a shout out and say thanks, Chris, for coming up and saying hello. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. This video is about the further loss of our history as African descent people. And just like I talked about last time on the house music video about how, when we don't know our history, when other people, take it over and rename it, we end up losing a lot. And we don't even know it in order to pass on to our children and grandchildren. So when I was in Savannah, my, happy place here, I was in Savannah and I went to Hilton Head. So all of this region, the Low Country region, South Carolina, Georgia, and North Florida, they're all connected as the Low Country. There are a lot of little islands there. Probably heard of Hilton Head, probably heard of like Myrtle Beach and that kind of thing. So I went to Hilton Head. Y'all, I was so disheartened. I mean, I was almost ready to go as soon as I got there. Now, of course, I've been there before, and of course, I know it's been gentrified, it's been developed, it's been turned into a resort. This was the land where a group of African people were brought, during the slave trade, and have remained on these islands, right? Their descendants are still on these islands, and we call these people Gullah people, Gullah culture, Geechee people, right? Thought to have come from Angola, the Congo, Nigeria. So what was so disturbing to me is because now the gentrification and development is so rampant that you can barely see any Black culture or Black people on Hilton Head at all. Now, mind you what I just said. This land, this region, was essentially left to African people and their descendants because after the Civil War, or right at the end, the white slaveholders abandoned their lands and left their slaves and went on back to the mainland for their own safety, right? A little historical lesson here for you. I won't go too much into the Civil War history. I'm sure you can look that up. But these African people were left there, and the people today are their descendants. So this land is rightfully their land, right? Because they've been there for centuries, literally, brought there during the slave trade. Now what's happened is the descendants are being basically run off from those lands because it is very beautiful oceanfront property. Developers, investors want the land. Now, of course, these people who are the descendants of former slaves do not have a deed to the property, right? But they have been living there for literally centuries. They have been keepers of the culture. It's like the only place in the world where we find this culture, right here, South Carolina, Georgia, North Florida. Most Americans don't even know it. Most people walking around Hilton Head have absolutely no idea of the history, the ground upon which they walk. Anyway, so here I come to Hilton Head, expecting to reconnect with some people that I've met there previously. I came in at night and it was, very hot and humid. It's essentially a swamp, but it's been developed. It's beautiful, y'all. It's beautiful. And I was just astounded at the level of gentrification. I mean, there's almost no Black people. I got into a conversation with a Black woman because I saw a Black woman. I said, let me go and talk to her and find out where are the Black people? What happened? Even in the last 2 years since I was last there, as I said, it's disturbing to me because we're literally losing ground as African people, African American people, because of gentrification and capitalism and just the development of the land right from under their feet. So, for example, one way this is happening is because the property value is going up because developers want it, right? People, investors are moving in, people are, wanting this beautiful land, and the property values are going up. Likewise, the taxes are going up, right? Property taxes. The descendants of these formerly enslaved people, right? These are Black people who've been there for centuries. They can't afford these rising property taxes. So they can't pay their taxes. Meanwhile, investors and developers come in and just buy their land out from under them because they haven't paid their property taxes. So maybe you've heard of this thing called tax lien investing. You can go in and buy property from people who haven't been able to pay their property taxes. Well, this is what that looks like. You're, really taking advantage of people in a very bad spot, because it's not so much that they don't want their property, they just can't afford the property taxes. So this is what's happening on Hilton Head rampantly. And I was just so discouraged. I literally, I wanted to leave. I didn't even stay as long as I would have on Hilton Head, frankly. I just, and the historian in me was thinking about all these historical things I'm talking to you about. I had intended to go for Juneteenth and, participate in some Juneteenth activities there. But I got there a little bit late, so I wasn't able to do that. And so it meant that everything I was looking at all around me was all touristy. It was all touristy. It was just, I can't even explain it. I guess I'm without words, which is not a good thing here on this YouTube channel to say I'm without words. But that's how disturbing it is to me, y'all, that we're losing ground, literally, losing our ancestral lands, losing our history, because as more and more tourists come in, Euro Americans really coming in, buying up the land, they have less and less connection to the land or to the history. They just have no idea whatsoever. And so as Black people are displaced more and more, that history goes by the wayside. And as we know in our schools, in a lot of states, they're deciding that they don't want to talk about race anymore. They don't want to talk about, I guess they don't want to talk about the Civil War anymore, unless they can talk about the Confederacy, which is going to be an interesting trick, because how do you talk about the Confederacy without talking about the Civil War and without talking about slavery? But that's a conversation for another day, a complication that really has no solution. So anyway, then I go back into Savannah. As I say, I'm just, the way I feel now, I don't ever need to go back to Hilton Head, is how I feel, because it's just such a disorienting feeling, knowing the history, knowing how Black people have been there for centuries and are displaced. So anyway, I go back into Savannah, and something similar is happening there. I mean, there's gentrification happening everywhere. And so within the city of Savannah itself, well, Savannah is very small. And so there are just few homes that are available. Something very similar is happening to Black people there. Investors are coming in. Now, mind you, I'm wanting to buy a home myself. So it's not so much that I'm saying that real estate investment is bad, but I'm saying that as a society, we haven't really figured out what to do with the people who are living in these homes, in these neighborhoods now. What we're seeing in America now is this massive investor push to come into communities and just grab up property, in mass, and flip them for profit. Meanwhile, the people who live there have no place to go. So America has this other problem: what to do with our people who become poor because they don't have a home anymore, right? What becomes of our people? And it's like America hasn't figured that part out or realized that that is the consequence. So there I am back in Savannah with a realtor myself, and just looking around at what is happening. And because it's so small, it's very apparent, it's very obvious. And so here I am. I don't have any conclusions, but I'm wondering if you all have, one, if you know about the Sea Islands, the Gullah Geechee culture, gentrification. You have any thoughts on gentrification, how it's happening in your neighborhood, in your city? You want to write in the comments what city you're in and what you're seeing in your city in terms of, what gentrification is really looking like in your city, and who are the people who are getting displaced, and where are they going? Into their cars, onto the street, into shelters? I mean, this is another consequence that America's going to have to deal with. But um, that's just like a bit of a travel log from my journeys. And as much as I love Savannah and planning to be there permanently, um, this was just sort of the background that was disturbing to me, because here we are literally losing ground and losing history, losing our story. And we're continually having to educate the world about our presence and about history. I mean, Americans say, so, people would say they're such patriots, but they don't want their history told. If you're a patriot and you love your country, why are you hiding from its history? Well, we know why. It makes them uncomfortable, makes them feel guilty. So anyway, that was just a little travelogue, and I would love to hear, what you're thinking about gentrification, what's going on across our country right here. That's just my take on it from Savannah. And yeah, let me know, long haul. If you've stayed to the end, I appreciate you as usual. Oh, and another thing coming here at the end, I am going to be opening up my Facebook group. You may or may not know that I have a Facebook group, and it is targeted to Black women at midlife who want to live, love, and thrive. And so it's been a small group up to now, but I'm going to open it up. So I'm going to be putting the link in the description box and probably making a community post. So if you are a Black woman at midlife, approximately 35 to 70, you might want to join us, because I don't open it up that much. I haven't anyway, but I'm going to start opening up so we can have more of a community over there, because people are continually asking me how they can participate in more of my programs. And I'm like, I don't have the bandwidth to just do one-on-one as much as I did, or open up my, individual small groups. And so here's a way where I can keep serving people in a larger way. So join me on that Facebook group. And again, write down long haul if you stayed with me this far, and I will see you next time.